Cześć, witajcie serdecznie. Tak tytułem wstępu myślę, że warto sobie uświadomić, dlaczego Gacy w ogóle zdecydował się na ten wywiad. Co prawda to pytanie padło i to nawet jako pierwsze. Dlaczego po tylu latach zdecydowałeś się na wywiad? Wprost zadał dziennikarz Gacy'emu. No, natomiast Gacy tutaj trochę tak pokrętnie, nie wprost odpowiedział. Powiem szczerze, że on tak miałko odpowiedział, że nawet ciężko było coś konkretnie z tego wysnuć. Natomiast jest to sprawa jasna. Dlaczego? Stąd to można wywnioskować, uświadomiwszy sobie, w jakiej sytuacji był Gacy. Otóż Gacy siedział w więzieniu. Nie tylko siedział, ale on tam czekał na śmierć, na wyrok śmierci, ponieważ dostał karę śmierci za 30 przeszło morderstw i on tak naprawdę czekał właśnie na tą śmierć. No i tutaj jest sprawa oczywista, bo Gacy, jak można po jego życiu wnioskować, on raczej nie działał przypadkowo, tylko miał konkretne cele. Świadomie sobie działania planował. No i cóż, tutaj cel jasno wynika z tej sytuacji, że głównym celem Gacy'ego było życie. On po prostu walczył o przeżycie. No i Gacy, jak tu już się chwalił wcześniej w wywiadzie, był pracocholikiem, tak dużo zarobił, więc było go stać tym samym na adwokatów, którzy tam przez x miesięcy przygotowywali się wspólnie z Gacy'm na ponowną rozprawę, której celem miało być oczywiście w najlepszym wypadku uniewinnienie Gacy'ego, żeby wyszedł na wolność, a żeby zostali oskarżeni inni za to, co się stało. No i taki właśnie był cel tego wszystkiego. I Gacy chciał przekonać wszystkich, chciał przekonać właśnie nie tylko sędziów, ławę przysięgłych, ale chciał przekonać po prostu także ludzi, dziennikarzy itd., itd. Dlaczego Gacy o tym nie powiedział wprost? Bo gdyby był inny powód, to by powiedział, a tak to właśnie tak wymijająco. Otóż, jakby powiedział, że walczy o życie, to równoznaczne byłoby to z tym, że boi się śmierci. A przecież Gacy się w życiu nie przyzna, że się czegoś boi. A dlaczego? Dlatego, że właśnie jego ojciec był takim tyranem, który nienawidził słabości. No i Gacy właśnie po pierwsze, to jest takie już zaprogramowane, że dzieci przez całe swoje życie jakby chcą sprostać oczekiwaniom rodziców, mniej lub bardziej uświadomionym. I ojciec Gacy'ego był właśnie takim tyranem, który chciał go wychować na prawdziwego faceta, twardego, silnego, nie okazującego emocji. No i Gacy żył tym jakby programem, przekonaniami, że on musi być silny, nie może pokazywać słabości. A druga jakby podpora tego przekonania, myślę, była po prostu taka, że Gacy świetnie odnajdywał się w społeczeństwie, miał właśnie wysoki poziom inteligencji emocjonalnej, potem właśnie poznać takie osoby, że świetnie sobie w społeczeństwie radzą. No i inteligencja emocjonalna, tylko tak zaznaczę, że jest to świadomość własnych emocji innych ludzi. I on doskonale wiedział, co robić, jak się zachowywać, co mówić, co ukrywać, żeby przybrać odpowiednią maskę akceptowalną wśród ludzi. No i on też dobrze o tym wiedział, że przyznanie się do jakiejkolwiek słabości równa się właśnie z taką pogardą. W tej części już Gacy będzie opowiadał swoją całą historię, jak to naprawdę było z tymi morderstwami. I właśnie pierwsza kwestia dotyczy jego domu. Otóż on mieszkał na takim terenie, gdzie było ryzyko powodzi. I w związku z tym to nie tyle chodziło o, o cały ten region, tylko on w jakimś konkretnym miejscu tam mieszkał, że gdzieś to było w dole jakimś takim nieznacznym. I też ten jego dom był w specjalny sposób zbudowany. Otóż między podłożem, między ziemią a podłogą była taka przestrzeń. To była taka przestrzeń, gdzie no nie można było stanąć normalnie, tylko no jedyne co to można było się przeczołgać, bo taka to była wysokość. Także jest to istotne, ponieważ wiecie co, powiem szczerze, że nie znalazłam odpowiedniego słowa polskiego, moim zdaniem, na tą przestrzeń, dlatego ja w materiale to tłumaczę jako pod podłogą. No i ta przestrzeń oczywiście służyła do ewentualnego gromadzenia się wody tam, no żeby w przypadku powodzi nie zalało podłogi i wnętrza domu, tylko żeby właśnie tam ta woda się zgromadziła, no i później w odpływie z powrotem uszła. I druga kwestia, Gacy miał firmę budowlaną, no jakoś tak cwanie to wszystko mu się ułożyło, że no jako firma budowlana to ciągnęli do niej młodzi chłopcy, no bo chcieli się przyuczyć, budowlanki, wiadomo, coś tam sobie zarobić. No a Gacy wiadomo gustował w takich młodych chłopcach, a po drugie miał tanią siłę roboczą, no bo wiadomo, że przynajmniej na tamte czasy tacy młodzi chłopcy, no to jeszcze chcą się nauczyć fachu, nie są aż tak wymagający, bo dzieci w domu nie płaczą, nie mają rodziny na utrzymaniu, więc też nie mają nie wiadomo jakich oczekiwań finansowych, więc no tutaj Gacy'emu było w tom i graj tacy pracownicy. I wśród tych młodych chłopców miał też takich wybranych, którzy byli taką jego prawą ręką. On w wywiadzie ich wymienia. Wymienia ich w takim kontekście, że to oni przyczynili się do tych morderstw. I no nie mówi tego wprost, ale rzuca taką sugestię, że najprawdopodobniej to oni za tym stoją. I zwróćcie uwagę, bo bardzo to jest ciekawe, w jaki sposób on mówi właśnie o ich udziale. On też tam wspomina swój udział w tym, co się zdarzyło i w jaki sposób o tym mówi. Jest to zupełnie coś innego, zupełnie w inny sposób. I widać tutaj, jak on to wszystko ma przemyślane, co mówić, jak mówić, w jaki sposób mówić. No ale tak nie do końca mu to wyszło, bo jednak w pewnych momentach sobie sam przeczy. Jak wy łapiecie, to napiszcie.
People don't want to know the truth and the honesty of it. If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
The thing of it is, they want you to believe that I and I alone committed these murders, and I had nothing to do with the murders of anyone.
If anybody was involved, then how many people are we talking about beside yourself?
We believe there was 4 people involved, and that would be Michael Rossi, David Cram, Philip Paskey. Here we've got a Philip Paskey who had a newsletter going on at the Cook County Jail. And here he is involved with a guy named John Norman. And John Norman was running Boys for Hire. They were making snuff films with young boys. To me, they were pimping them off. They were selling them. There was a crossover when we checked into John Norman's background that he goes all the way back to the early 70s, involved in. He ran the Norman Foundation. He run Epic International and the Odyssey Foundation out of Dallas, Texas. And these were organizations where wealthy men could hire young boys for sexual weekends, male prostitution.
Had you ever met Norman? You ever had any contact with Norman?
I have yet to see a current picture of him, and therefore I'd had to say no. Phil Paskey may have been with him at one time or another because, see, again, I came home from out of town at times and Phil Paskey would be at the house drinking beer or something like that. David Cram is the one that brought Phil Paskey in, because Cram, when he didn't want to do nothing, he got a hold of this guy and said, well, this guy can get you somebody for sex.
We have always contended there's others involved. At the time of my arrest, there was 4 other suspects. 3 of the suspects that we knew that they knew then was Michael Rossi, David Cram, and Philip Paskey, all employees of PDM contractors, all with keys to the house on Summerdale.
There was 12 keys out to the house.
12 sets of keys?
12 sets of keys. Anybody working for PDM contractors had a set of keys for the house. So you could come and go when you wanted. And, of course, my neighbors would keep me informed. They would inform me, God, while you were out of town, they must have been partying all night there.
Who is Rossi?
Michael Rossi was an employee of PDM.
Mm-hmm. And how old was he at the time? Who was he?
He was 20 years old. Insofar as being bisexual, if I wanted to engage in sex, Rossi and Cram were willing to go down on me anytime I wanted to, providing they were given stuff.
If you want to charge me with anything, charge me with complicity in 2 of the murders.
Just 2?
That's all I know about. You know, when I tell you I've got background information on we took each one of them by, we took each one of the victims, and this is by their names or by their indictment numbers. And what we did with each one of them, we did profile sheets on them. We wanted to know what this kid was into, what his background was.
Just want to highlight on John Zick. You know, they want to make such an issue over John Zick and his disappearance. I think he was killed for his car, personally.
And your personal knowledge of the Zick case then is
my personal knowledge of the Zick case is that I had come home and Zick and Rossi were at the house. I had a few drinks. I went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, Rossi was sleeping on the couch and Zick was dead on the floor. I went about my own business, and he was gone later on.
And where did he go? Where did he end up?
I assumed he ended up in the crawl space.
Did you see him being transported down there?
No, wasn't present. Didn't do the transporting.
But when he was dead on the floor?
He was dead on the floor, yes.
And did you have conversation with anybody about that?
No. In other words, I just kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to get involved. Mm-hmm. My idea was to just stay out of it.
I met him the night he was killed because I met him with Michael Rossi. I had a drink with the 2 of them, and then I left. And when I next seen the individual, he was dead.
Where did you see
him? Why
him?
didn't I say something about it? Because it wasn't my business, and I stayed out of other people's business.
Where did you see him dead?
In the house on Summerdale.
And did Rossi tell you who had killed him?
No, Rossi didn't say nothing. Rossi was sleeping on a couch. I just left.
And how did he get buried? Do you know?
He was buried in the crawl space. When I come back, he wasn't there. So, Walter, that's your guess as to who put him in the ground in that.
I couldn't get down in the crawl space that easy, and then I had to bum back to begin with. You got to crawl on your belly to move around in the crawl space. There is no way that I could have done any of the digging down there. I had enough trouble just getting down there.
Robert Peace was killed by another individual in my home.
How did he get to your
home? He was transported to the house by another.
How did the other, whoever he was, kill Robert Peace?
I believe he was strangled.
You were there, right?
Not during the crime, but I was there afterwards, and I watched the removal of the body.
And what happened to the body afterwards? Was one that was that body was put into the river?
It was taken to the river and dumped in the river.
Did you help do that?
Yes, I'm in complicity with that. I've always contended. Don't look at me as an innocent babe of the woods.
And you took him where?
Out on the I-55 bridge.
And that's where. How was he then taken from the car and placed into the river?
Just opened up the trunk and dumped him in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There was no big special deal on it.
Yeah. John, how about Tim McCoy, the last one of the 5 that you say you had personal knowledge of?
Tim McCoy, even though he's the last one, he's the first one.
He's the first one, actually.
Right.
The first of the 33.
Tim McCoy was the first one, and Tim McCoy's name wasn't put on him until 1988. Prior to that, he was known as Unknown Number 9, mm-hmm. and he was buried by me in the crawl space. Mm-hmm. That's the only knowledge that I have of it.
What was the circumstances of that?
He was killed in the house in self-defense.
And who killed him then?
I stabbed him.
Yeah, and it was an issue of self-defense. Why was he in the process of assaulting you, or what?
He was coming at me with a knife. I just took the knife away and twisted it in his hand, and that's what killed him.
So at that point, you yourself did bury him then in the crawl space,
right? And if you notice, he's under concrete.
Did you bury any of the others in the crawl space?
No, I had nothing. I had no knowledge of them.
Yeah. Well, why is it that your first one is there, and then 20 some others are buried down there as well? Did somebody know that you had done this with the first one, giving them an idea?
More than likely, when drinking and getting high with the others, yeah.
Admitting it to them. So you feel others then followed your suit in using this as a burial ground?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Gregory Godsick. Let's see, number 4. Gregory Godsick had come to work for me in according to this, 1976. He came to us through Taft High School through a program. He had worked for Republic Lumber Company, and then he came to work for us.
What happened to what happened in the Vukovic case? Where was he picked up, and how did he get to the house, and what happened with him?
I don't want to go into the other the 5 that I know about. Just take it that I did. Vukovic is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him. The little bit that I know about him is that he was an employee of mine. See, when you look about this recall business, and
I'm not a prosecutor, John, but you just
I know
said
you're not.
Vukovic
Wait a minute.
is not one that you killed, which suggests that maybe in fact there were others that you did kill. I mean, I'm not.
Okay, I'm sorry if I led you to believe. No, strike it then. That is wrong. I have a lot of things that I've forgotten that I can't remember. For instance, I can go back to my childhood and stuff and I still remember that, but yet I can go into the 70s and there are a lot of things I can't remember. The same thing with the victims. I've looked at all of, I don't know if you notice here, we got pictures of every one of the victims here. And believe it or not, for the last 12 years, I've studied these photos of the victims. And there is no, we have a shot of all of the victims together here. And when you look over at the photos, I have no recollection of any of them. Never met them. And we've gone over this more than once. They're just names and faces. And when you look at them, the thing of it is, we took it a step further. We went into their backgrounds. I wanted to know where they were at, what schools they attended, who they hung out with, and what kind of activities they were into. And that's what we dug up on each one of the victims. But still, there is no association. None of them never worked for me. None of them, they never went to any places that I ever hung around, because I didn't hang around that many places unless you were involved in politics or if you were involved in clowning, then I might have ran into you. But there's no way I could have run into any of them.
That you never painted yourself as the innocent babe in the woods.
We're going over the same thing. Yeah, we're not going to go into
basically, no. But, I mean, the point is if you feel that you're not covering up your part of the crimes, but at the same time you open up the thought that others were involved, would you be willing to cooperate with law enforcement people today to avail, say, the materials that you have amassed and to more or less pursue, if in fact there are others that are on the streets that have been involved in these murders? Would you be willing to cooperate and to assist to pursue that to the ends of bringing others to justice? Would you be willing to do that?
I got no qualms about that, but what I don't understand is why wasn't it done to begin with, Bob? What I did not know about this insanity defense is that in the state of Illinois, when you plead not guilty by reason of insanity, you're saying that you committed the crime, but that you were insane at the time. So it's not a question of innocent or guilt anymore. What they're trying to do is your whole trial now becomes an insanity trial where you're to decide whether a person is sane or insane. I felt things were going to work out because I knew that I didn't do the killing, and I thought it would come out in the trial. But Amaranthi, with this insanity defense, and again, you can call it my ignorance of the law. It's like I explained in a letter to Chief Justice William Clark. The evidence-based is on the theory that the more sensational a case is, the more crazier it sounds, the insanity defense would work. And I still think it was stupid. I think that they did a disservice to me, and they did a disservice to the victims. And you know what people don't understand is I feel I was wrongfully convicted for 33 murders, and it was only because of sensationalism and ego. The Des Plaines police did a sloppy investigation. This is, I mean, it may not be the correct way of wording it, but the thing of it is that they had other suspects, and they had tunnel vision in to say, it's Gacy's house. It's easier to put everything on Gacy. I think one of the headlines said I was a homosexual mass murder, confessed mass murder. There is no confession. And we offered, I offered as much as $10,000 if you can produce a confession where I confessed to a crime. The time that I was interrogated by the police officers, there was no stenographer, there was no tape recording, there was no videotaping. Nothing was ever taken down, yet everywhere you'll see there's 5 confessions by John Wayne Gacy. Now, if I confessed to something, then why wasn't it videotaped? Why wasn't it recorded? Why wasn't a stenographer brought in, had it written up, and have me sign it? There is no confessions in this case. As you know, I'm a bug about record keeping. Mm-hmm. All of my business records confirmed where I was, who I was with, what hotel I stayed at, what meals I ate. Everything was in the files. And all of those files on December 29th of 1978 were confiscated by the Des Plaines Police Department. And those files there alone could have proven that I wasn't in Illinois when 16 of these murders, when they finally set the dates as to when these murders occurred. Just like I consider myself the 34th victim, I consider the families victims as well, because they did not get justice from the shoddy investigation all the way down through. As I told you, when the FBI first came in to check on me, you said that you were kept out of the case back in '78, and that was only because of egos. They did not want a professional coming in and doing an investigation. So they did their sloppy investigation and let it slide that way. You see, everybody was so excited about the large, massive case, and everybody was looking with their egos as to how they could close this thing up. And you know the only one that they really hurt? You've had the victim's family vent all their hostility towards me, and they think I'm the monster that killed their son or took out their son and stuff like that, when in fact most of them don't even have the remains of their own sons. And you know, that's another thing everybody misses from this, is that the victims' families are not aware that in a lot of the cases they don't even have the remains of their own sons, because Dr. Stein never turned over the whole body, and they took the heads off of each one of the victims. So when you turn over the remains to a loved one's family, they don't have the whole body. I'm not only the victim here. I might be the 34th victim, but there are other victims to this crime, and that is the family. Because if I know that I didn't commit the crime, then I have been given the injustice, and so is the families. And nobody gives a damn about the families. That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down. She goes on Geraldo show and all these other shows talking about, I think it's Maori, I think is the name. Her Marine son. If her Marine son was so great, what the hell did he run away from home 12 times?
It's not enough for him to be murder.
I know that.
Well, Walter, it's hard for me to comprehend that Gacy has the right to say something like that about me because of the fact of what he did. What right has he to
say anything about you at all?
Right.